asked to, excuse me, do this self-evaluation for internal controls. This is to help us do our risk assessment on each entity to determine whether you're high, medium, or low. Fraud, abuse, and waste has been in the headlines recently. We just, in Uinta County, actually, it was in the headlines yesterday, we had a director embezzle over $600,000. And when the grants guidance was revised, it became a regulation that we had to do risk assessments, and this helps us do our risk assessment. So most of the stuff is pretty basic. You don't have to attach your latest audit, that's number 5 here, if I've already received it, because I send out the affirmation of audit to all our subrecipients and ask if you have to have an audit, and if you have to have an audit, you have to send it to me. So that information is shared out on our intranet so Kyle can actually see if there is one that's been completed. This is just so we know if you are getting an audit, if you know what the opinion has been, if there's been any findings, and if you have, if you were to lie on here and I have the audit, I'm going to know that you have, misrepresented yourself. This top part here that, asks for grants and names of grants, that's just to kind of give us an idea whether or not you actually do need to be audited. If you expend over $750,000 in federal funds, you have to have a single audit. Your accounting system here is to let us know whether or not you're commingling your federal dollars. It's so we can actually see that you have a software accounting system that keeps everything separate. Just like the state of Wyoming, yes, all our money goes into the treasurer's office, but our accounting system enables us to track by program. So each grant goes in our accounting system with its own unique identifier. And so when the auditors come here, I can pull that up and show them. So that's what we're looking for there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. It's just to know that, that you have a little bit of separation of duties. I know in the state of Wyoming, it's very hard. We have a lot of small offices. So that's what some of these other general questions are, is, who's doing what, so we can kind of see. Do you have written policies and procedures in place, and how do you make a vendor payment? If you are, contracting or subawarding the funds that we give you out. Those are the things we're looking at. Do you have travel policies and procedures? This has become real important lately. I have some entities that they're asking for a higher rate of reimbursement, and so we have to decide whether or not that's reasonable to the grant. Do you have personnel policies and procedures? Again, this goes down to segregation of duties. The same with procurement. Your procurement policies should be in line with the federal policies. The state of Wyoming is stricter, so we follow the state of Wyoming's. Yours should be close to what the feds have in regulation or stricter. Does the grant that that we're giving you, is there a match required? How do you track that? Just like in our accounting system, I have to track our match. So when the auditors come in, they look, and I can show them that, yes, everything's tracked separately. Nobody's using this pot of money for something else, because match, it can only be counted once. We have a maintenance of effort that we have to do too, so that has to be tracked totally separate too. Part of your acceptance of federal funds is, do you have a record retention policy? Because anytime that you have federal funds, you have to have those records for so many years before you can actually archive them or destroy them. So that's what that question is. On the responsible parties, when you list the names here, we're checking there to see if there is the separation of duties. So that's what all that is there. And then the general is just to give us an idea, you know, has there been a lot of staff turnover? Because if there has, you usually get a little higher of a mark. You know, do you have written policies and procedures? If you don't, you definitely need to. We're just asking for your table of contents and your appendices. It's just so we can kind of have an idea what you have. You need to have a written whistleblower policy and a conflict of interest policy, because if you just say you're on the board of XYZ company and you're also working at ABC company and XYZ gets awarded funds, as a board member, that's kind of a conflict of interest because of the ABC company receiving the grant. So those are kind of things we're looking at. We had an employee here with the Department of Health, just to give you an example, that was on a board that was awarded a contract that this person worked on. And so that was a conflict of interest, and she didn't advise anybody of that. And so that became an issue. So that's what that is about. The whistleblower policy, and I'll go back to what I said when I talked about Uinta County. There was an employee that blew the whistle on this director, and that's why that policy is key, is so there's no lashing back at that employee for turning that person in. You turn this in, and then Kyle then does the risk assessment, and you get an awarded a point, and it gets totaled. And you know, it may, if you're low, you know, she may just do desk auditing. If you're a medium to high, there may be more conditions to your award. You know, this is one of our ways to try, you know, to help everybody in the department that awards funds, you know, to look and see where the risk is and what we need to do to, you know, to alleviate that. Any questions?
Again, I'm just going to ask you to write them in the chat box. I can unmute people, but then we end up with a lot of background noise. One of the first questions that comes to my mind, Debbie, is does every blank have to be filled in? And what if you don't, say in that personnel, actually have somebody that does that? I mean, when I get this risk evaluation, I need to see something in every single line?
No, some of the stuff may be not applicable. You know, when you look at it, the thing that I would be looking at, you know, do they have policies and procedures in place? When you look at, for the people who do, there should be somebody doing the processing and payroll. It should be someone different than, you know, the approval of the time card, I guess. You know, it's like our procurement procedures, our personnel, you know, I put in my time, Craig has to approve it, then it goes over to HR. Our procurement procedures, you know, because we're a bigger office, you know, there's a lot of sign-offs. You know, if you're purchasing equipment, you have to get approval from, you know, ETS. If it's computer equipment, you then have to, you know, it goes through your fiscal manager. It goes down through general accounting. You know, there's a process. It's like vouchers. When an expense comes in, you review the invoice. Someone else then prepares that voucher to pay that invoice. The fiscal manager signs off on that. So that's, you know, 3 people looking at it, and then general accounting looks at it too. before it's eventually processed. That's what kind of what we're looking for separation of duties. It's just like because there's only me and Sean, so there's only two of us. So if I prepare the draw, I can't approve the draw. Sean has to review my work and sign off on it. So that's what we're looking for there. So there may not be. It may be the same person that, does several things within an office.
Okay, we have a question from D. Phillips. Under responsible parties, do we enter an employee name or just the role this is assigned to?
I would do the role.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts? This could be really short, which I think we'd all really appreciate. I do need these as soon as possible so that I can move forward writing the fiscal year 19 SHIP grant agreements. And if you currently have a SHIP grant, I need that as soon as possible. And if you're receiving flex funds directly, so if we have a grant agreement in place for you to receive flex funds, I'm going to need that one too. So I actually need two. Isn't that correct, Debbie?
Could you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
So for every grant that they're getting, they have
Yes.
to fill out this risk evaluation.
Yes.
And so each program manager then will do the evaluation.
We'll do an evaluation. And then if there's, for example, if one of your entities also gets a grant from someone else in the office, I know the counties, I'll use them as an example because I know they get a lot of grant funds from a lot of different grants. Each program manager has to do a risk assessment. And if that assessment, say one employee A rates them at 25 and then employee B rates them at 30, we need an explanation as to why the higher or the lower. Because maybe you saw something that the other person didn't see. So, yeah, it's for every grant, and that's because when the auditors come in, it just depends which grants they pick to audit. So they may only pick the SHIP grant and not the flex. So we have to show that we did it for the SHIP for that year. If that's what the grant they pick to audit. It just depends what they choose to audit.
Okay, and then we have a question from Margie Molitor. When is this form being sent out? I believe I sent it out to everyone. Everyone should already have it, but I will resend it. Again, this is just due diligence. We're just trying to make sure that federal funds, your tax dollars, are getting used and spent in the way that they are assigned to do. And we want to make sure that what happened in Uintah County doesn't happen in any other of our other communities. We want to make sure that everybody is going to continue to get those federal funds that they've been getting for those quality improvement, financial improvement, population health, and EMS activities. D. Viznia, verify.
That was me. I was just reiterating again.
I would use the role assigned under the responsible party. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about transparency.
If there are no other comments, questions, concerns, I might have another one. Okay, send me the forms. Okay, I will, Dawn. Let me grab your email right now. Does anyone else, if you do need the forms sent to you, will you please, well, I will send them out to everybody again. I'll just send them out. I will take a moment to unmute you in case you want to speak up rather than write. I think I might be able to do that. Maybe not. It's always fun to see. And so if there aren't any more, I'm trying to unmute everybody right now. I may not be able to. All right. Does anyone else have any questions, concerns, comments? Yes. Thank you, Margie. Yes, so all of the forms need to come back to me. I can put a due date out there if you want me to, but I just assume you guys just send them back to me as soon as possible. So yes, you send them directly back to me. I evaluate them and I send them off to Debbie. All right. Debbie, on the bottom of your screen, if you want to stop share, and this recording will, by the way, I should have let you guys know that this was being recorded. That's my mistake. This was recorded. It will be available on the YChem website for further reference, and you're welcome to reach out to me anytime if you have any further questions. I look forward to getting your evaluations back. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.